I think with development, there are more things involved. There's more steps, more professionals and consultants. And I mean, but again, I look at it more almost like producing a movie, right? Like, I don't need to know everything about a boom mic or how to edit films or how to, set up the craft tables, but I need to know who to talk to put the pieces in place to be successful.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik, and with me, as always, is John Cohen. How we doing?
We're good. Another day, right? We're just rolling in. We're opening up, which is good. By the time this goes live, we will be open. We'll probably be in phase 2, but no, Long Island's in phase 2, but no, it's all good, right? We're just, we're rolling with the punches.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see how everything's opening back up. And it'll be really interesting to see how the testing goes and if things kind of spike or not, and see how all these protests kind of play into it too. I don't know if you saw, today's the 9th of June, but did you see like the WHO and the CDC both said like asymptomatic people aren't as like,
they may not be passing it like they thought they
and then
were.
Also like, I think the WHO said the virus on surfaces isn't as dangerous as it was. And it's like, Oh God, everyone's going to be freaking out of like, why did you shut down for so long? But
there was like the reports like even like the new strains that are coming up are not as potent. And, listen, I don't think anyone fucking has a clue what's going on.
No.
I think they're just taking the information as it comes in, vaccine, no vaccine, strength, immunity, this guy's spreading it, that guy's spreading it. There was also a report that like the protest that like the virus is going to live there, right? Like it's going to thrive in mass protests. So it's going to be fun, right? We're 2020. I don't think anyone had this one penciled out, so we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, that's for sure. But let's dive into the episode. We got a really great guest on today. A guy I connected with years ago and been following his journey. It's been really interesting to see. So I'm really excited to hear more from him, what's been going on, and how he's kind of gotten into the development world, the opportunity zone world, because I think that's a space people are trying to push into all the time. And it's always interesting to hear people's journeys. So with that being said, Jason, thanks for coming on, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Hey, awesome. Real quick, so can you cuss on the show?
If you want.
All right.
It was funny. I have a very good friend who was going for a jog the other day, and he was scrolling through podcasts, and he came to mine. He's like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Explicit. So go for it. No holds barred.
I usually try to keep it PG, but sometimes
that's okay.
Get a little stressed out and it slips out a little bit.
It's all good. So, like I said, thank you for coming on. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you? So, just who you are, where you're from, something about your journey, and what you're working on today.
Sure. My name is Jason Hsaio. My company is called Hsaio Investments, and we primarily focus on infill development in California, but we'll invest in syndications or put together syndications ourselves in multifamily to kind of even out that income stream a little bit. And, tell me if you haven't heard of this one before, but basically I got started when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I think the difference was I read it that summer between high school and freshman in college. Mm-hmm. And that really set the ball in motion. And basically I convinced my dad to buy a 2-bedroom condo because my sister and I overlap a little bit at school. So her last year and my second year, my first year I was in the dorms. So we bought a 2-bedroom. We lived in it, and I told my dad, "Hey, after sis graduates, I'm gonna rent it out to my friends, cover your interests, whatever you want it to be, the expenses, and whatever left over is my beer money, so to speak." And that's how we got started. I also invested in a bar, like a 22, 23-year-old with some disposable income would love to do in Austin, Texas. And I it wasn't going that well. And I remember looking at our financial statements too. I'm going, how much are we paying rent? This is stupid. I think we're in the wrong business, guys. And that kind of planted some seeds as well. And we bought some properties in the downturn, but really, I would say things really picked up in the second half, kind of 2011, 2012 timeframe, when my dad bought a duplex that can be redeveloped into sort of 3 single family homes, like detached condo map kind of style. And it wasn't going well, and it sort of coincided with my tech job not going well. The company was reorganizing. I was on my third manager 9 months in, and my company focused on virtual desktops or remote work style tools, and my managers were in Boston, so I would just fly down to LA to help my dad figure out what he needs to do at 7-8 o'clock in the morning in planning department. And then after I'm done, I go back to my regular day job kind of thing. And it wasn't easy. I was asking a lot of dumb questions, honestly, in the beginning, but I just kind of put the egos aside and I just sort of headstrong that I'll be damned if my dad's gonna lose money on this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
After we completed that, it was sort of just reevaluating. Okay, do I want to keep following my own path and go down the tech route that I've been wanting to pursue, or hey, this real estate thing is pretty interesting. It's not something a lot of people know how to do, and I decided to essentially the desire to control my own fate, so to speak, won out in that, and we decided to keep going, build more, and essentially go all into real estate. So in California, we'll typically try to find lots that are zoned for 3, 4, 5, 6 homes kind of things, or depending on area, sometimes they might be more appropriate for multifamily. But right now, we also took on a food hall project that's kind of interesting. We can touch on that. And our biggest project is a 15 unit, and we also got an opportunity zone project that we're working on as well here in SoCal.
Awesome. I love it. I'm curious, how did you end up going more into the development route? Because I could see a lot of people, having the one rental, buying the duplex, and then you try to build these 3 single family homes and it doesn't go how you thought it would go, and go, wow, that condo we bought and rented probably went way smoother than this. Why did you decide to keep going forward with the development, or did you shift and then you've just come back to it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I would say part of it just because of the exposure. That's what we, that project we were working on, and the other thing, I suppose it has to do more to do with my personality. I definitely. I mean, growing up, I think I've always been kind of trained to be a contrarian, and I don't want to do things just because everybody is doing it. Like, chances are I think it was Sam Zell has a similar saying, right? Like, when everybody's zigging, I'm trying to zag. And I think probably just glutton for punishment. I do enjoy doing hard things that people don't feel like they could do. Like, I'll try to, I think before I had kids, we would hike or climb mountains a lot kind of thing. And it's that challenge that kind of drives you a little bit.
I can relate to that. I think that early on in our, I always gravitated to this stuff. Not only was it cheap, but maybe people shied away from it. So I think there's something to be said, Sam Zell, and if the herd's going that way, I want to be going that way. I'm either going to walk into the slaughterhouse and just murdering myself, or I'm just thinking totally different. So I think that it does take that element. And, it doesn't have to be completely reinventing the wheel, but, everyone's, you can't do that. It's not going to happen. That's a natural reaction of anybody that you tell when you want to do anything, real estate, technology, creating a company, whatever it may be. And I think that any one of us, all 3 of us here, and anyone that's been successful or is on their way to be successful probably has that somewhere inside of them. So I think that you realizing that is important, because like you said, you could have probably went down the other path and who knows what would have happened, but being different is good, right? I think that, that's a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's interesting to see how some people take their punches and keep going, and how some other people change and decide to shift. So I think it's credit to you to keep going. How important was that first deal, the development we were just talking about, in educating you on the development process? Do you feel like that taught you almost everything you need to know, or was it every project since has just continued to elevate your learning to where now you're building some really cool projects if you go to your website and look at?
Yeah, a little bit both, to be honest. I think the process or the steps are almost the same in general. Obviously, every city, every jurisdiction, or depending on the asset type, are a little bit different. But in the beginning, you're in general, you are working with the planning department, and then you go on to the building department, and then you bid it out, get GC, and actually finishing out. And maybe things are a little bit different here or there on when you start leasing up or starting to exit, those kind of things. Financing or capital raising could be a little bit different depending on the size or the scope of the project. But I think after that first one, and throughout the process too, I was reading a lot and trying to listen to as many different podcasts or whatever resources, or just asking a lot of questions from friends that have done it before, and etc. So I think the overall big, the major milestones from that, I was like, okay, yeah, like this is kind of how you do it. But definitely, I would say I'm still learning too, a lot of the technical side of things. Looking at electrical plans and plumbing plans, that definitely is still a work in progress, I'll admit.
Gotcha. And what do you think the biggest difference is between, in your opinion, like the development stuff that you've done and some of the existing either single family condos or multifamily that you've done? Obviously there's massive differences, but in the way you kind of look at a deal, structure the deal, what are some of the bigger differences you see when you're doing the development side versus some of the other stuff?
I would say just the complexity or the number of steps, right? A lot of people feel development is too risky or it's really risky, and they're right to a certain extent because there are more steps involved and a lot more chances things can go wrong. And I don't necessarily agree it's that risky. Definitely, I think if you can get over the entitlement risk, then everything else is much lower. If you have a good team and the people that you're working with. But depending on the state you're into, definitely, if you think initially you think you can build 100 units, but the neighbors hated it, they wanted you to lower the height, and you only ended up building 70. That's a big unknown. How do you address that in the early stages, right? But yeah, I mean, and it's not, to earlier point, it's not to discount or discredit any of my friends that does multifamily value add, like asset management and property management is still really hard. Just, I think with development, there are more things involved. There are more steps, more professionals and consultants. And I mean, but again, I look at it more almost like producing a movie, right? Like, I don't need to know everything about a boom mic or how to edit films or how to, set up the craft tables, but I need to know who to talk to put the pieces in place to be successful. And, for all the components, I think just you're probably going to be stronger in some than others, but you should know enough to be dangerous, or at least know what you're doing, or enough to know what you don't know and get the right people in place to address this.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I think, and you probably were going there, but knowing what you don't know and being aware of that, right? Knowing that, I'm going to have to find someone to do this. I know I have to get it done, but I don't know how to. But knowing that piece, or at least being aware that you may not know how to, you know, you have to find the right person, but you don't know how to do it after that. I think that's important. Anything you do, right? Because, you know, people want to pretend like they know everything themselves, and that's just not the case. So you being aware that you got to sit back and direct and put the right person in the position to be successful is you know, that probably takes a lot of the risk out of it, right? Knowing that, okay, I could find this person. When I know that person, you know, he'll be able to get that piece of the puzzle to the finish line, which will take out some of that risk that maybe people believe is there that they're not 100% sure of.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to us, you know, when we go in and look at any construction work or managing a property. I don't know, you know, 90% of what a manager does day to day. I don't know, you know, 90% of the knowledge that a contractor knows for the physical aspects of the property, but I know who to talk to and what information I need to get to make sure that I can do my part of the job. Because what a lot of people don't realize is, especially as you start getting bigger and bigger projects, we're basically buying or building mini businesses, and businesses have a lot of different aspects to them that you're not going to know exactly how to do. And having just the right people in the right places to do 90% of the job, you only need to understand 10 and just make sure you're getting the right information. So I think oftentimes when we don't know a lot of things as we get into something new, that can be scary. And it's, hey, you don't need to know exactly how to do this. You just have to have the people that do. And I think that's really important. Was it hard to find those people to help you out, or was it something you were just able to figure out pretty quickly?
It's a process. I'll just put it that way. Like, it's similar. I think your chances are better when you get somebody through a referral. But you know, you still gonna kiss a few frogs in the long way. But you know, as long as you got plan B, or I mean, I'm okay for most of the decisions I've made, but there are definitely times where, you know, in the back of my head, in my mind, I'm already thinking of, I am thinking about moving on, but we kind of took another 3 months to make that decision, those kind of things. But yeah, like I said, I think I usually put it this way, where, look, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I know what I don't know, or at least I know what questions to ask to get me the questions that I need. And similar to, I think Gary Vee is the one that says this, right? Like, focus on your strengths, double down on your strength, and outsource your weakness. And I mean, come on, even the Avengers needed different teams or different people to round out their teams and the different strengths. So,
Oh, I think that's great. I think it's a fantastic analogy too. Quick question. I want to backpedal. When, and I think I know this, but I want to double check. When you talk about entitling land,
yeah,
that's basically when a piece of land is zoned for, or you can do use for one type of thing and you want to change it to another, correct?
it doesn't have to be changing. I mean, that is a step. If you wanted to take that on, for sure, you could. I generally don't advise people to do it.
Okay.
Because, I mean, let's face it, city planners, they're understaffed and they're not exactly excited about looking for more work to do. And, you know, the process involved doing that to justify it, sending the application, and then chances are, if you rezone it, a bunch of the neighbors going to want to rezone it too. But there are certain, I would say, if your parcel's big enough or in a strategically located place, and that could sort of spur the city into doing something more interesting, more strategic, more big picture. For example, our food hall project, we didn't spur this. Like, it was already kind of set in motion. The city wanted to put in a specific plan to open up more possibilities with different types of development, and we were more piggyback off of that initiative already. But yeah, zone change doesn't have to be part of the entitlement process, but if definitely, like, you can make a case, or you're sort of maybe taking a chance on it. But entitlement, yeah, it involves, you know, submitting your vision to the planning department and actually getting to building department as well, to where you can stick a shovel in the ground and, you know, break ground.
Gotcha.
what we call shovel ready, basically.
Yep. Gotcha. That makes sense. So kind of going along with what you're talking about, one of your big projects right now is this food hall. Tell me a little bit about it, because I think it's super fascinating. I've seen you post a couple times about it on like LinkedIn and stuff like that. Just tell everybody a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so this project, it was 2.65 acres on a stretch of road that just historically the city kind of overlooked a little bit. But they were, like I said, they were putting together a specific plan to allow more different types of commercial and specifically more residential development. And it's a brick warehouse on it that Wonder Bread used to own. And I think back in the day, Helms Bakery, which is a local LA bakery from the 40s, 50s, used to own it. At one point, FedEx or UPS, I think, used it as almost like a small distribution center as well. And it's a building that the locals are very fond of. We thought it was really cool as well. We walked in and maybe shouldn't have, but we definitely love the barrel truss roof that it has and got a little bit emotional about it. And we basically looked at it where I think that whether it's in real estate or business or tech, I think from my tech background, I've been trained or focused a lot about market validation. And we had the idea to do a food hall just from my travel to, Chelsea Market or Ponce City Market in Atlanta and Revival Food Hall in Chicago, those kind of things. We essentially went out and tested to see if there is a product market fit. Is in this case an actual market. The locals been telling us, hey, we're looking for a better place to hang out, to grab places to eat. We're tired of these national franchise chains. The city officials have been telling us the same. And we got a broker on board to essentially see if we can get any tenants that are interested as well. And once we actually have a couple of leases signed, we go, okay, yeah, we're onto something here, because people are not pushing us back on the rent that we're asking for, and they love the concept as well. It wasn't just some crazy idea we thought it would be cool in our head. And after that, we took the approach. There's a couple of different approaches for food halls. There's some people that essentially they'll just build out the same space for everybody, almost kind of like what Kitchen United or some of these cloud kitchens are doing. Mm-hmm. And we didn't necessarily love that idea, just because there are definitely trade-offs, pros as you can build out a lot quicker and worry about the lease up later. But we just felt like there would be a lot of rework or from networking and talking to other developers. There's one in SoCal, he did that, and he's had to turn tenants away or have to rework the space because the cook line wasn't ideal or they needed a hood at a different place. But we leased it up, and we went through the plan check with the city and the county and all that. And there's definitely a lot of moving pieces, especially for us. Like, one side of our road is in county jurisdiction, and it's just a different department, different game involved kind of thing. But right now we are waiting for, we're waiting for utilities to be turned on. There's supposed to be scheduled for late this week, early next week. We'll see how that goes, because they're notoriously known for just doing whatever the heck they want kind of thing. But once we have that, we can finish out installing the equipment and pass health and building final, and we can open hopefully in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal, because I know this has been a project in the works for a little bit of while. So I won't congratulate you yet, but when it does go live, I'll definitely congratulate you. But that's awesome to see it come through. So can you talk to me a little bit about the beginning stages of it? Was this a deal that, was this a listed deal for this type of thing? Was it something that you got creative and you were like, oh, this would make a great spot for a food hall, we know people want this? How did the idea come about?
Yeah, some of it was personal, like I said. Just we thought we were trying to think outside the box a little bit. What can we use this brick building for? The previous developer wanted to just tear it down and make more condos, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that would be a very good backup plan as well, while we were sort of testing and validating the idea, because just in case we were wrong and people hated this idea or don't want to pay the rent that we're asking for, then yeah, that was our backup plan for this. And sorry, what else did you ask?
Yeah, just like how how was it sourced? Was it something that was
Okay.
listed? Was it not listed?
Yeah, so this one actually we heard about it through LoopNet, which is typically what people say, where good deals go to die. But this one, I think they were, well, I know this broker too, but I think he doesn't blast them out to the LoopNet just only after he's exhausted his Rolodex. I think it's just part of his regular marketing procedures or campaign. And we got in contact with them and kind of just we knew both options would be pretty good. And I think the big picture wise, it made a lot of sense to us as well. In where we are, the San Gabriel Valley outside of LA, there's a metro line that was extending east. And the other thing was the traffic was really good and the school district was good. In California, where we are, there's basically there's San Marino, Arcadia, and Temple City. You guys probably are not familiar with those area, but the schools are 9s and 10s, and then people keep getting priced out. You already see the trend sort of moving east, but the other schools, they're not as good, and only this other town or this area, their schools are 9s and 10s again. So we use essentially that guides a lot of our investment thesis is just affordability and schools and transit. This is LA. People still drive a lot, and people take transits here and there. But for us, the site was basically at the corner of an auxiliary highway, where if the major highway fills up or backs up, people take that, and then the other side street leads the on ramp to the highway. So it gets something like 41,000 cars on average per day. And those are sort of the fundamentals or some of the underlying stats that made us feel like this is really promising.
Yeah, I think it's important. It goes back to location is basically everything. And I think one thing that's interesting too is you said, a lot of people talk about LoopNet is where deals go to die to a certain degree. And yes, that's true. There's also, agents and brokers who do what you said, where part of their marketing practices to simultaneously do it. So you have to know who it is. But I also think it's where deals go to die with one train of thinking. Oftentimes people are looking at it the same way, where if you can get creative and look at it a different way, maybe it is a deal that can make sense, or maybe it's only a slight discount to what they're asking if it is slightly overpriced, where if you can have a vision and be creative, maybe it's something that you can get done. And I'm not saying that's 80% of deals you just need to be creative to make it work. I would say a large majority of deals there probably are overpriced to some degree, or aren't exactly ready for sale. But there's definitely opportunities on there. It's not something that should be ignored. It's just not going to be like, oh, it's not the same as the MLS. Let's put it that way, in my opinion. So I do think there is some opportunity. So credit to you for going out there, finding a deal, and getting creative to make it work. Almost there.
Yeah, I mean, in this market, this late in the cycle, good deals or great deals are made. They're not found anymore. I think, and the part of the reason too, we've been trying to utilize a lot of the ADU legislatures in California to try to increase some units here or there, and essentially boost up our rents.
Yeah. So you're doing this deal. You're also doing a couple other deals. And then I know you guys are also in some opportunity zone stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, opportunity zone stuff. So the law was passed, December 2017, and it was probably around March when we started looking into it, or March 2018 when we started looking into it and trying to wrap our heads around the tax incentives and some of the legislatures, what you need to do in order to qualify, and looking at the different markets. I think there's 8,800 something different opportunity track zones, and
I don't even know.
yeah, a lot of them, they're just, they're designated opportunity zone for a good reason. No offense to any of them, just I probably would not invest in them in 100 years. And the process of how these zones were designated, I think, wasn't as transparent. There were people complaining about it. And if you're telling me there's some politics involved behind closed doors, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're just taking a general medium house income and slapping the zones together. So there are definitely zones that, in our opinion, you can again sort of see the stars aligning, or there are zones that really shouldn't be in opportunity zones. For example, downtown Portland, part of it is in the opportunity zone, and downtown Berkeley as well. I think maybe because of the homeless population. Parts of San Jose, Redwood City, parts of, I think actually, where's Amazon going in Long Island? Or
Long
sorry,
Island City.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Queens.
there's a sliver of it that's in there. And in LA too, there are areas we thought have a lot of promise. You know, you could see like Netflix and Disney, that streaming war was heating up, and everybody was taking up offices. And when we don't have to get into the whole COVID thing right now, but at least at that time it was like, okay, well, when offices come, next comes the restaurants, and when the restaurants come, next come the hipsters, and then the rent increases basically. So we were looking at those areas, and then a couple other parts of LA that had a lot of promise. Again, good schools, or both public and private investment going in there along with transit.
Mm-hmm. And were you interested in it because having the development background and having to spend so much capital in these areas, you thought it was a good transition for you and there was a lot of capital, or what was the reasoning for you guys getting involved with it?
For the OZ side, I think it was to be honest, I actually enjoy the exercise, because OZ has this 10-year requirement. And, I'm also very big on sort of doing good for the community. And for us to narrow it down, the market that we have faith for 10 years, and in markets that could use a little extra help, um, I think mainly we just found it to be interesting. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily like, I guess I don't know why other people do OCD. I mean, I think some people just probably because they have capital gains, they wanted to defer, but we just thought it was an interesting exercise. And I don't often say this about government, but I actually do like the process, following the process. I actually do like what the IRS did. They took a lot of industry feedbacks and adjusted the rulings and the criterias. But yeah, I mean, I think we just wanted to be part of the process and part of this transformation in the communities that we thought would be good.
Awesome. I think that's interesting. I know, it gained a ton of traction real quick. And then as more and more rulings came out, it became a little bit tougher to do. Like I remember when it came out, we were joking. We're like, oh, we're just going to buy a 4 cap deal and sit on it for 10 years and no one's going to have to pay taxes. And obviously that wasn't what it turned into.
And actually to your question earlier, it wasn't necessarily just because we do the regulation, right, where you do have to double your investment minus the land value. It does tend to lend better to development strategies, because we did look at a lot of multifamily value add, and my friends I invest with in Atlanta, they have a couple properties, but those are all super heavy lifting value adds. And the ones we come across multifamily wise or something existing structure already in California or other places, they're like, okay, well, yeah, we could double our investment. What do you want? Gold toilets, diamond countertops? Like that makes zero sense though. So
Yeah, I mean, the amount of deals we get sent that are, you know, your regular value add type deals, and then they throw at the bottom, oh, opportunity zone qualified, and you're like, okay, like what else are we supposed to do? Like, you can't double the rent, you can't even raise the rent, 30, 40, 50%. How am I going to be justified doubling what I'm buying it for minus the land? It just makes no sense. So
yeah, no, I mean they're just brokers. They know, but they don't know all the ins and outs of it. But they're just like, oh, this is an OZ, so you should pay 20% more, and just like get the fuck out of here, man.
It was when it first came out, and then you would bring it up. You're like, I'm buying this for 80 a door. You want me to put 80 a door into it? Take out the land cost. What, okay. And I have 160,000 a door, 1960s shithole. What do you want me to do with it, right? Like, you can't sell that. It's completely unsellable. Well, you own it for 10 years. It doesn't matter. It's going to be even more worthless in 10 years. Like, since I get a stepped up basis, they just had no clue. And, I tell people this all the time. Brokers they're the intermediary to deals, but they know probably less than you know. They just facilitate the transactions. It's like going into Starbucks and asking the person that's making a frappuccino, what they're doing, right? They don't know. They went there, they got trained, and they just put it together. There's no difference except they know how to mix it the right way, right? A broker knows how to bring a transaction to a buyer, but he doesn't know anything about it. So it was funny because I was joking around the other day when a broker's like, well, this is a deal you should consider. And I said, yeah, but I'm not even close on the asking price. And it's not like if I bet wrong and it's not the right deal, the seller doesn't call you up in 2 or 3 years and say, oh, it didn't work, I'm going to give you your money back. It doesn't work that way. It's the only one that has the risk in the deal is me. So it's let them do what they want, but that's sort of their gig. So don't let anyone a broker's a broker. Don't think they're smarter than you or better than you or know more than you. They just facilitate transactions.
Yeah, and I mean OZ, it didn't turn. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be this like earth-shattering legislature or tax incentives kind of thing, but there's so many things to watch out for that. I think only a sliver of the intended outcome will be achieved, but it'd still be a nice boost. And to your question earlier, Chris, too, like we started in March 2018, and we bid on other properties and ended up, runner-up or bridesmaids on them kind of thing, but we didn't get our actual property under contract until late June 2019. It took us like a year and a half to find that first one that we thought was really good.
Gotcha. And how have those properties been going?
I'm sorry?
How have those, I think you've done a couple, right? How have they been going for you guys?
No, we're just working on this one. Granted, we've been growing and scaling up. And this one, it's kind of like when you're lifting weights and you put on a new set of plates. This one, granted, like we went a little, we got out of our comfort zone for sure on this. So in terms of, raising the capital and the type of construction on it, we ended up getting a co-developer on it. So that, took a little extra time to round out our resume. And now we're back in it to work on the entitlement aspect of things.
Gotcha. Wait, this isn't the deal in Atlanta, is it? This is another one?
No, Atlanta, I'm an LP. So
okay.
My friends, they have, I don't know, 5 properties maybe in their OZ fund, and coincided. They exited out one of the deals I invested in, and I basically go, okay, well, just let it roll, parlay this, like put it in your OZ fund then.
Gotcha. So what's this other one you're talking about then?
This one is down in San Pedro, in like south part of LA. This one we're the GP on it, and so yeah, this one we closed late June 2019, and There's just a lot of different moving parts to it.
Gotcha. And this is like a development, like this is just land you're buying to develop.
Yeah, this one existing 17,500 square foot of lot or so. It's just a commercial property on it, and our plan is to put a 6-story apartment or mixed use property on it. That there'll be 63 units. There's other zones in LA we're looking at that. I lately I've been trying to think, just we stay a little bit more nimble, trying to do smaller projects or buy projects. So there are certain zonings in LA, and if you're in this, basically you can turn a single family home into a fourplex, and that would be a much easier raise and much shorter timeline. You can, if you like we're looking at maybe only like $500,000 raise. And there's also this prefab manufacturer that we've been talking to, essentially say instead of 6 months, let's say 6 months to get your permit, and let's say a year to build out, that's 18 months. Like with their prefab, we can probably get this done. We can probably save like half a year or a year of time. Yeah.
And that's the same thing, turning a single into a fourplex, or that's different?
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's interesting. So with the big one, I'm curious, because you said apartments are mixed use. With everything going on with the pandemic, are you guys revisiting initial designs with the retail components and, thinking about changing it up? Or, as things are kind of leveling off now, are you guys kind of going back to, or sticking with the original plan?
Yeah, design we're not changing really, because so in this area, we're right across from the cruise ship terminal. And the reason I say mixed use is because, the zoning does require us to have some retail or commercial component on the ground floor facing this one throughput major thoroughfare street. And our plan initially was going to do just a small co-working space. It's not like WeWork or anything like that, but I do believe co-working has a place in the market, just not at that scale or doing a bunch of crappy deals and capturing that spread. In our minds, if it was going the way we thought it would bring a lot more younger professional to it. There's one of the developers we know, they're building new apartment units, and then there's a big sort of public market food hall concept going in that will bring more office and entertainment options to the area. So we thought having a co-working space for the younger professional makes sense, and it'll be an amenity to the people that they're in our building as well. So we didn't change the design necessarily. What we did change was obviously our underwriting. I think we took about a 15% dip. We just brought our expected rent down, and then the retail component is hard. I think the market was about $2.5 a square foot, and we have lenders that go, just put zeros in there, and we're like, are you serious? Can we put $1? Are you okay with this underwriting? And they go, okay, yeah, $1 is fine.
We had that conversation on a deal. It's still on the market. It's out in Columbus. It's a gorgeous property, but the whole first floor is retail. And
Columbus, Ohio, or Columbus where?
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And I keep telling the broker, I'm like, he's like, well, the financing is going to be really good, and there's a tax abatement. I said, yeah, but you're underwriting the retail at market rent, just zero. It's no income, and the banks are not budging. Let's say, like you said, if it's $250, you put $1. Okay, you probably got a bank to buy into it, but if that's the reason why the deal works and you're going into it today, well, then you're foolish. If you already own a deal, it's totally different. But I have that conversation with the brokers daily, because they keep sending out updates on like the lease-up status. I'm like, I don't care about the apartments. I know they'll rent. what about the retail? They're like, well, they were negotiating with 2 or 3 different groups. Now they're all, I said, I don't care what they were doing. Their retail is worthless right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But you're right. Banks just don't care. It's I'm not giving you credit for it for the most part, but and it's obviously market specific and location and what the plans were, but it's that's a tough pill to swallow. But as long as it works, it works.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just sort of putting in kind of the worst case scenario. And honestly, even when we first put together our offering too, we sandbag a lot of numbers. We put in like $1 million construction contingencies, even though we know we already padded the real number by another $1 million, kind of thing.
No, I think it's important.
We talk about that all the time. Just when you're going to put your budget together, go high with conservative things, because then it's so much easier to be flexible that way than when you come in there with down to the nickel with a contingency. If you put some extra fat in there, stuff like this, you could withstand the storm, when you had extra money here, extra money there, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I'm not saying to deceive your investors or when you're going out to pitch this, but sometimes we'll almost take the opposite approach. We're like, okay, let's see. We know kind of how low this IRR or these cash on cash numbers you need to be to get people to be interested. So we'll almost like, okay, we're just sandbagging these numbers to at least they'll say yes, and then if it performs what we thought it would be, they're just super excited.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, they're like, oh well, like you did what you promised you would.
Yeah,
it's smart.
And the good thing is too, this is a development where, because it's opportunity zone, you're more likely than not going to go 10 years. If you're in that great of a location, time is only going to help you overcome those hurdles. The retail market in an area that populated, maybe it comes all the way back, maybe it doesn't, but it's not going to stay down at $1, I don't think, for 10 years. So
yeah, and
time's going to heal some of those wounds too in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, you're kind of lucky that it was, an opportunity zone deal and not a typical development that a lot of people do where, you got to be in and out in, 2 to 4, maybe even, 5 years.
Yeah, and a lot of people doesn't know this too, where technically if you sell your property in that 10-year time frame, you can roll it into another QOZ fund within a year and still retain all the tax benefits. We don't want to promise that just knowing how hard it was or how long it took us to find this property anyway. And again, if it does happen, everything is just gravy on top.
We did the same for our opportunities on deal. We told our investors the same thing. Listen, if someone comes knocking on our door at a great price, obviously we're going to entertain it. But as long as you go back into another OZD area, no harm, no foul. And in the end of the day, an offer is an offer, right? If you've deferred your taxes 4 years, okay, at some point you see what happens. But we said the same thing. Just, listen, you don't have to not sell it. You can sell it. You just got to find something else within a year in that same thing. So it's something to keep in mind for anyone listening to know that. Obviously, that's another important factor, right? It doesn't mean you just can't do anything. It just means that you just got to be, you got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and we when we were talking to people in financing too, that some did ask us like, what, instead of doing all these extra work to find OZ equity for you, are you guys opposed to just doing a regular project and build it up, leasing up, and 2 to 3 years you go find another one kind of thing, or you guys really do want to do the OZ 10-year time frame? And this relates to the earlier comment, right? Like some of these areas we are looking in, when he brought that up, it actually kind of threw me for a loop, and I thought about it. And I go, actually, I'm more comfortable with the 10-year time frame than the 3, because number one, it just needs that runway. It needs that time to transform and season, and 10-year actually gives me a lot more flexibility to figure out or pivot what I need to do, versus a 3. Like, who knows who the next president's going to be or what, like. That actually made me less comfortable, which is kind of ironic, but because usually when you think about longer time frame, there's more risk. Again, more things can go wrong in that aspect. But in this one, I think maybe a lot of it, because they're in an OZ, they were sort of already bottom the barrel kind of thing. It's like, well, it can't get worse.
Exactly. No, but I think it's definitely important to keep that in mind as you're looking at deals. But I think that's also a fantastic place to wrap up. Jason, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, your experience and knowledge with everybody. If they want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, or follow you on anything, where can they do all that?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best place. I have a small daughter, so I don't accept a lot of Facebook requests now. But find me on LinkedIn. Our website is investwithshaw.com. That's SHAW. Or you can find me on Instagram as well. I post some of our project updates or things I'm working on, and a little bit of tips and tricks or some motivational quotes there. My handle is Jason_shovel-ready.
Beautiful. Guys, make sure you go check him out. Jason, thank you for coming on. And guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you're not already subscribed, please go do so. It would mean the world to John and I. And if you are already subscribed, please send it to a friend or a family member. Word of mouth is kind of our lifeblood. And also, if you haven't already checked it out, we just launched a Facebook group that's not even content-based. It's all community-driven, all to connect with you guys. So you can go to Facebook and search the Real Estate Investing Experience and go check it out. Jason, once again, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was fantastic.
Thanks you guys. Awesome. Happy to help any way I can.
Thank you.